TPCSI fans, you want to revolutionize your sports investing habits? Allow me to tell you about WagerWire. WagerWire is an app that helps you become a superior bettor by allowing you to sync all your sports books and track all your bets in one place. See your current action, your betting history, and stats. You could also sign up for sports books and collect bonus offers. Follow them at WagerWire on X, as it's the best account on the platform. Head to App Store or Play Store now and search WagerWire and download the app.
2,000 years long, we will never settle. Hard days, no way, with a heavy metal. No time, no fail, won't stop here. Like a torch to a flame when it burns hot. We won't stop, come on, baby, higher.
Good afternoon, sports fans from all around the globe. I am the host, Jeff Dawson, East Coast Sports Investors, and it's that time of the week for Fight Night Fortunes with good friend and colleague, Mr. Lou Finocchiaro. This week, UFC Denver Fight Night. We gave him a week off. He debuted 2 weeks ago for UFC 303, and we said, you did so well. How about taking the week off, and we'll bring you back this Thursday. Actually, UFC was off, of course, and we're back here for 7 straight weeks of UFC Octagon action. First and foremost, a shout out to our proud sponsor and partnership, WagerWire. If you have not downloaded the app, please hurry on over to Google Play or wherever you download the app. It's free. After that, myself, Travis, Zach, the rest of this amazing team and community will take great care of you. And of course, that last commercial that we just played, shout out to our proud sponsor and partnership of Viva Tequila Seltzer. Shout out to CT. Met Austin today with the delivery, and brother, we couldn't be happier here down on Cape Cod to be a part of such a great group and beverage there. So without further ado, let's bring in the true star of this show, the one and only Mr. Lou himself. Let me do this. Excuse me. I told you
no
I'd
problem.
be.
How you doing, Jeff?
I'm doing great. How are you, Lou?
Doing great. Happy to be with you again. It was good to get a week off. There's not many of them during the UFC calendar year, but I'm ready to break it down and have some fisticuffs to look forward to on Saturday.
Well, as I did in the promo, 303 live at T-Mobile, you were there, front row. Thoughts before the fight started? I know there was some weight issues on one of the fights that I know you'll discuss. Get us to the lead up as you were there at T-Mobile and all the last second movements in that fight and what your eyes saw in 303.
Well, again, I want to say thanks for having me on, but I have to make it straight. I went to a fellow handicapper's house in Vegas, watched with a couple people in the industry. I didn't go to the fights personally. I've been to many fights. And I'm to the point at this juncture where I have enough going on with live betting and everything else that I'm best off away from a large crowd and in front of my computer. So I do a lot of work during a UFC evening. And so this time I had my computer with some friends. It went great. My overall thoughts on which is what your question is that I think the Las Vegas young man, Dan Ige, is a warrior, and how fortunate it was for him to be able to step in. I believe, what he did for the UFC will be rewarded back to him in future considerations, if you will. I think as much of the other young man, Diego Lopez, because he just kept saying yes to fights, contractually ready to fight at 145, ends up fighting agreed to on 2 hours notice at 165 after he had to pass through 155, of course. So a lot moving, but those two young men our young future stars, and I'm so tickled for the success of both. And then in the main event, when you have two events with, and you don't wait a year and a half or 2 years, if you have them right back to back, I don't know how much really can change, unless, of course, you have a very young fighter or one that maybe would be old. But when two guys in their prime face off, have one result in November, you run it back, the result isn't much different. And I'm referring to Alex Pereira in the main event against Yuri Prohaska in 303. I thought both events were better than what we would have had with McGregor, and I'm not down talking McGregor. I just thought those two fights were better, and I was happy the way it played out.
I am not the expert. I am hoping after, let's say, a half a year of doing shows with you, I will have a lot better grasp on the fight cards than I do this second. I was attracted to Pereira and Yuri. I say tongue in cheek, I love when my co-host on the night shift, Pereira's a bad man. And I felt for Yuri in this regard. After the second loss to him, he's now questioning whether he belongs or not. And in this sport, especially, Lou, there's usually one person or one female that's your kryptonite, and maybe this is just his kryptonite. He was thinking about retiring, and which I know and I assume he won't. Is Pereira just his kryptonite?
No, I think Yuri fights highly emotionally. He is a highly emotional man, and he was reacting to a highly emotional situation as an emotional man would. And I get that, because as a younger kid, I was highly emotional, and you put yourself in a fight situation and then try and, walk your way through it. Those were relatively, I think those were same night comments anyway. Now that he's had a chance to have some time and go back and look, I'm certain that he has good enough help and people around him that are telling him what we talked about before the fight. Get your effing guard up, man. You can't address a killer like Pereira on the feet, number one, and then do it with no defense. You can't walk through those strikes. He could walk through Rakic's strikes like that, but Rakic isn't Pereira. And so Yuri has a lot to work on, basics-wise, in my opinion, and mentally. He can't just go out there and bully a world-class pedigreed kickboxer like Alex Pereira.
And lastly, on that subject, Dana White was interviewed a couple times, and he's made it clear the greatest of all time is John Jones. He says you throw anyone into a closed setting, put the two in a room, and I guarantee you John Jones will be the one walking out. And the talks of Pereira moving up to heavyweight, is Dana protecting his meal ticket now with Pereira, saying we'd rather leave him down here versus what could happen at the heavyweight? Or do you feel it doesn't matter? If he moved up to heavyweight, he's going to do the same destruction?
Well, that's a great question. I guess I'm glad you asked it, because now I have to answer it anyway. Here's my thoughts. I have strong thoughts on that. I think Dana sees that the lightning in the bottle currently today in the UFC is Alex Pereira. And Dana's smart enough to leave him where he can dominate and thrive, and that's where he is right now. Though Pereira and Camp may think that a stray up to heavyweight would be good for him, I can think of 3 or 4 opponents that would be really terrible opponents for him immediately. I think the UFC is smart enough to incentivize him to stay where he's at for a little while longer anyway. And the other part of the question, it was a statement that I want to completely 100%, 20% agree with, and that is that the GOAT in MMA is John Jones, and he's still active. He's going to fight one more time and then retire, I believe, but he's the man. And then the only one you could even mention in the same level with him would be Nurmagomedov. That said, Nurmagomedov wasn't the pound for pound GOAT while they were both in their prime. John Jones was. So Jones still gets that, but we have to pay our respect to Nurmagomedov, the young lightweight champion that retired undefeated. So there we have that.
We're going to break down, or I should say, you're going to break down 4 fights on this card. I'm going to start right here. I got DraftKings to the left of me. I'm going to give you some current numbers. You can say where the numbers opened up, where they closed. I remember on our 303 show, you talked about a number, and the name is slipping my mind, that you got way back at minus 450. I think he closed at minus 1,600, and he was the gentleman that won in 18 seconds.
That's right.
Your eyes are as sharp as anyone. So Blackshear and Jackson right now, I got a Montel Jackson minus 135. I get Damon Blackshear plus 114, over 2.5 minus 215. The under at the under 2.5 at plus 165.
Yeah, those are the same DraftKings numbers I have, so that's at least encouraging. So this fight, I believe this is the best fight on the card. This is a fight between two guys that physically look like each other. Both 5'10", both 135. Jackson got an inch longer reach. That's the difference. Both guys very well-rounded. Jackson, maybe a little heavier hands, would prefer to keep it standing. Can wrestle, isn't a great wrestler. Blackshear, great wrestler, prefers to go to the ground. Can he keep it standing? Yeah, and he's a good striker. Maybe not the power that Jackson has. So this is going to be a fight that's really going to be closely competed, I think, and goes to a tight decision. In it, Jackson opens minus 170, and as the week has gone on, the price is whittled down and down and down and down, and so to me, what I'll say is Blackshear, Damon Blackshear, in his bantamweight fight against, and of course I blank out Montel Jackson. I'll say that any plus price on Blackshear is a go. And so, because you're not going to get what I got earlier in the week or what my clients got, because this is Thursday and I did that Tuesday. So you want to go to GAMBLOU.com, that's great. Other than that, for today, I'd say even if you heard this and drive home and you get on the web page and it's plus $1.05 or plus $1.10, I think Blackshear plus money is a good bet for two guys I see as razor sharp thin.
The fight itself, Lou, in the middle of the cage, toe-to-toe, or is someone better at grappling? One wants to wrestle, or is this just going to be mano a mano?
That's a really good question. I think if it's on the floor, Blackshear controls it with his wrestling. And if it's standing, it'll be interesting to see and monitor Blackshear's volume against the power of Jackson. But I think that if it remains standing, it'll be a close fight that probably favors Jackson. If Blackshear can get it to the ground and mix it up a little bit more, he could keep Jackson off balance, and therefore the fight would be his. I believe that Blackshear in his last fight against a guy named Mario Bautista proved a lot to me in the level of opponent he faced, even though he lost a very close decision. And it's that a lot that I'm bringing into this fight against Jackson.
Okay. I am going to give you the benefit of the doubt on this next one. I will make it very simple. I'm just going to say Jasmine. I cannot pronunciate his last name. Versus Fatima Klein. Currently, Jasmine minus 115, Fatima minus 105 on DraftKings. 2.5 juiced over minus 345, under plus 250 there.
And you said that Jazadavicius, her price is what?
Now minus 115.
Now minus 115. She opened minus 250. Okay, and so everybody got a hold of this Klein and they fell in love with her. Now, is she capable? Yes. She's undefeated, 6-0, comes from a great camp, really apt, agile, very young, 23, can fight out of either stance, but wants to grapple and get in close. She's not fully developed striking yet. She goes in with a 35-year-old Canadian gal that has unbelievable amount of UFC experience and history. And so her experience alone, as well as the fact that fight is at 125 pounds. Jazadavicius has competed against the elite and, middle of the road athletes within that division for some years now. Fatima takes this fight coming from the East Coast, so she trains in New York somewhere. She takes it, goes across the country to fight at altitude at a fight level 10 pounds ahead of where she normally competes, because she competes at 115. But the UFC called. She wants her opportunity to shine. She's going to take it, and she's going to risk fighting up against a more experienced gal, and I'm not having it. Of course, we're on Jazadavicius at plus money. That was... And that one, by the time Thursday comes, that's all gone away. This fight will probably close close to pick 'em. Maybe Jasmine comes back with a little late money, perhaps, but she's the more experienced, pedigreed fighter that I have to take in what I think is a great move for this young lady, Fatima, to take this fight on short notice and travel, but she's given up a lot, and you're asking a lot of her.
The numbers, as you talked about on our first show that we debuted, and again today, and you do so much work, and the scrollers have obviously been going the whole time. Anyone watching and listening, everyone in the right now that's lighting you up like a Christmas tree, Lou, they follow you. They're big time followers, and you're getting nothing but praise here. Go to gamblinglou.com. You want to be involved in this early in the week to get the best prices. We do our shows on Thursday, but these numbers are coming out a lot earlier. So as Lou's giving out the numbers that he is and his clients have, he's still giving us the sides and the edges, but we're not getting those prices, obviously, that you got.
And Jeffrey, I do every Monday, I do a podcast called the Sneak Teat Podcast. And I break down the major line movements of each UFC fight card on Monday morning before anybody even gets out of bed. My study is done. I've tracked the opening numbers. This week I gave 5 fights, all that had line movement. We're talking about many of them. All that had major line movement. I talk about whether I like it or not. It's an 11-minute podcast. It's quick and to the point. And I give a free release on that every single week. And I think that I'm not sure if it was who it was this week. It was maybe Jazadavicius, to be quite honest. I don't know if I remember what I discussed on Monday, but I do a Sneak Teat podcast that's available on any podcast, and anyone can get it. That's free to everyone. You don't just have to become a member, but if you choose to do that, you got to go to GAMBLOU to get that part done.
Third fight that we have here, bear with me here. No, geez, you guys really are making me having to do some studying here.
Let me go first for you.
Okay,
so the good part about this one is Russia versus Brazil, and they hate each other as far as the fight culture. The Brazilian Santiago Ponzinibbio, he's fighting the Russian Muslim Salikov. Salikov, 40 years old, but tough as an old piece of steak. And he's mean as a junkyard dog, but he doesn't come with the wrestling that you would expect most OVs, meaning people with their last name ending in OV, to come with. He's more a Muay Thai kicker striker. He has bludgeoning kicks and wants to knock people out. That said, he's in a young man's game. He's given up a little bit of height, a little bit of reach, a lot of age to Ponzinibbio, the Brazilian, who likes to strike and can wrestle and grapple pretty well himself. So in a fight where I know Salikov wants to keep it standing, I think Ponzinibbio will acquiesce him. And this fight here could be fireworks as two guys stand at distance and tee off on one another. I tend to think that Ponzinibbio, again, slightly taller, slightly longer, 3 years younger, still at 37, has a little more zip and a little more speed. As well, Salikov has been caught a couple times in his last 5 fights. And if he gets touched, he'll go, and Ponzinibbio can touch you.
Currently on DraftKings right now, Santiago minus 192, Muslim at plus 160. You talked about potential fireworks, under, over, 2.5, over minus 110, under 2.5, shaded to minus 120. So the money's coming in on under 2.5 and Santiago, correct?
Yeah, the money's going to Ponzinibbio, and maybe the way that I would attack this would be, via finish. And so I'm looking at my DraftKings props right now. Yeah, I can't to go the distance. Okay, so that's going to be. The fight goes the distance, yes, plus 110. So the no's minus 150. I tend to agree with that. No, in fact, that's maybe how I would go with this, or I'd try and find Ponzinibbio via the inside the distance where you could get him any way potentially. I'm surprised I can't find that right now, to be quite honest with you. I'm not sure why I'm looking at my DraftKings winning method. Here we go. To win by finish, Ponzinibbio now becomes plus 150. That's how I would play this fight if I was looking at Ponzinibbio. And so that's the aversion I have. Could I take him at the minus 195? No, I can't. I'd either parlay him with someone else to make a positive price, or rather than that, I do believe he can finish Salikov. I'll go the inside the distance and take the plus 150, but I'm not betting a minus 195 to win one. And people that know me and that are around me know that's not how I bet. Now, if there's a guy like Mike Tyson against me, and the fight comes Tyson minus 500, I may come to you with a favorite, because Tyson would be bigger than a minus 500 favorite against me. So that's the only way I'm going to give you a minus number, is if it's that obtuse of a number. Otherwise, I find ways to bet my money on a number that has a plus sign in front of it.
You're preaching to the choir, Lou. We should have met 1,000,000 years ago, but we got 1,000,000 left. So you exactly
we've both been taught well. You don't stick around long if you don't know some of these things, because it's the road of success in gambling is littered with those guys that bet the chalk every night.
Amen to that. The last fight you were going to break down today on the card, Rose versus Tracy Cortez, currently on DraftKings. Rose minus 218. You can get Cortez plus 180. Over 4.5 rounds, minus 280. Under plus 210.
This fight opened a pick. So now people listening should be frustrated at that. What do you mean it opened a pick and now, Namajunas is minus 220? Welcome to the market of the UFC. Welcome to also it being non-football season, and there's nothing to bet on now except baseball and some World Cup soccer or some kind of soccer. And so the UFC is getting a lot more attention. They're getting early attention but it's not necessarily attention that's coming from sharp UFC bettors. Rather, it's coming from public. And so the market tends to be a little more volatile this time of year. And now, as soon as the first NFL preseason game kicks off, we'll go back to being a little more of a stable but unsophisticated market. You can't, if you're gambling in the NFL or in the NBA, or if you're gambling on any kind of major market soccer, you're going to get tight lines based on efficient markets. And you come to the UFC, you've got some adjusting to do. Okay, so just understand that. So we can hear it because all these fights start so obtuse. So Nama Yunus comes from, she's a champion at 115. She's fought the complete elite of her generation at that weight class, dominated them all, lost the title recently, then found out that she really needs to fight at 125 now. She's a little bit older and more mature, and cutting so drastically to get to 115, she isn't able to do it as much as she used to, and she would prefer not to. So she's fighting at 25. She still can move. She's still very well-rounded. She can submit you. She can knock you out, or she can outpoint you. She's very well-rounded, very experienced. She trains in Denver, and she fights at elevation day in and day out. Now she takes on a fighter that she was supposed to fight, got sick. Tracy Cortez steps in. She's from California. She steps in on short notice, though she was preparing for a fight to fight another young girl, Miranda Maverick, next week. But Maverick is a short little Tasmanian devil wrestler. And now Cortez not only does not get Miranda Maverick, but she has to travel a week sooner, cut the weight sooner, go to Denver in elevation from California on 3 days, 4 days notice. We're asking a lot out of Cortez. So the number move to Nama Yunus makes perfect sense. What makes no sense is the opening number. That's a different discussion. So in this fight, Cortez's story, if we're going to try and be Cortez fans, and she is from Phoenix. I live in Phoenix. She grew up here, was a wrestler. Her family's a bunch of wrestlers from Maryvale, a really renowned wrestling community in Southwest Phoenix. And so she trains at Fight Ready. And so her story is she believes this is an opportunity for her. And how's she going to win? She's going to win because she fought at 135 much of her career coming up. And as she's gotten older and more mature, she refined herself. She fights at 25. But she's going to be the stronger, longer, taller, younger woman in the octagon when the fight starts. So will Rose be able to maintain distance, peck her apart from distance, and be able to handle her wrestling advances? Tracy Cortez does not have the sophisticated or refined striking yet at all. That's hard to teach wrestlers in short time. She's still developing her striking, but she's a tiger and she knows how to wrestle, and that's the one thing she can do. And because she's singularly dimensioned, the wrestling could take some gas out of her in combination with the elevation. And for that reason, I hate to chew off minus 220. If we wanted to bet Rose Namajunas, we should have taken her Monday at minus 110 or even minus 150 as the number was getting away from us. We're awful late on that train now. That said, the total 4.5, as you mentioned, it's still a lot for Cortez, who's going to have a high energy output type fight in Denver for 5 rounds. I might be tempted to take Namajunas inside the distance and get that plus price, as well as when we talked about the last fight.
You talked about Denver. You talked about the altitude. Looking at the card outside, looking in the full card, is there any name out there that you, I don't want to say, we'll have a harder time? I mean, we watch football. We watch a lot of sports. We watch the Denver Nuggets. In the higher altitude, they have that home court advantage. Now we're talking UFC. We're talking combat here. Is there a couple people to put on notice because of this altitude that, bigger might not be able to adjust or adapt quick enough to this?
Well, I think rather than look at it that way, I think you look at it as who's from Denver, right?
Rose.
I mean, who's from Denver? Raise your hand. Advantage, right? So Dober in his fight, he trains there. He's going to have, but he's got family there asking for tickets. So does it rub both ways? We'll have to see in the fight. But as far as altitude, which is an absolute consideration in the fight game, Dober trains up in altitude, and so does Rose. So it's important to know those specifics when you're approaching a fight card.
Next week, where is the UFC?
Next week, the UFC is, I believe, at the Apex for a fight. And you caught me a little off guard with that one. Hold on just a second. I'll tell you exactly where they are. I'll go to their webpage. Yes, we're going to have martial artists are going to be in the main event on July 20th. And that's going to be at the UFC Apex. Then the week after that, we'll go out to Manchester, England, for an unbelievably good fight card.
Well, the scroll has been going the whole time. Everyone here, thank you so much for all the questions, Mr. Shady and company. Go follow Lou at GAMBLOU on Twitter. You can catch him on Sports Grid. Catch Bout Business Podcasts. His website, gamblou.com. But as we always finish here, Lou, tell everyone directly what you have in store for them when they do reach out.
Yeah, first of all, anyone that has questions about their current wagers or any kind of reasonable suggestion or approach will be responded to. But the best way to get me, Lou, at gamblou.com. The webpage is gamblou.com, so you can go there and get everything that you'll need there, because my name and email is plastered throughout. But never hesitate to email me directly. I'm also on Twitter at GAMBLOU. I have a decent reach there where I comment on the fights and such. And so as an old saddle professional gambler, I'm here to try and help people. So let me know if I can help you. I may not be able to write you a check and send you money across the country, but I can help you with your future bets. I've got, the NFL's coming up soon. I'm doing my study right now, and in about 11, 12 days, I'll be done and ready to talk NFL in comprehensive fashion. So there's a lot to do, and I appreciate you, Jeff, for having me on and being able to reach out to the East Coast community.
Well, we couldn't be happier. We really couldn't. And now what it has done is really had me start cracking down. I eat, sleep, drink UFC right now, trying to get caught up to speed. Hopefully, as we're progressing here week to week, my pronunciation will get a little better there. When in doubt, at least I can pronounce the first names. How's that, Lou?
Yeah, I mean, these are all great young kids. They don't care as long as we make an honest effort to be courteous to them. They're really respectful, great kids, and so that's an easy part.
Tomorrow, 11 a.m., 8 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. West Coast, Wager Wire, and we'll be live again. Super stoked to have my man back in the saddle here at 11 o'clock, Mr. Travis Geiger himself. At 1 o'clock, Sean Alvarez will be here, Mr. Smooth Turn himself, to break down some races at Saratoga for the weekend. And then back at 6:15, in the batter's box with Scotty Webb. So for myself, Jeff Dawson at EC Sports Invest, the one and only Lou Finocchiaro at GAMBLOU, we wish everyone a blessed day. Cash some tickets in the octagon, and we'll see you soon.